China is like all kinds of dictatorships, really. Bullying is what it does. But bullying its own people is one thing. What China doesn't seem to get is that bullying Australia does not work. China's Foreign Minister last Friday finally agreed to talks with Australia and met new Foreign Minister Penny Wong after 3 years of punishing Australia with trade bans, bans on meeting ministers, and all because we defended free speech and asked for an inquiry into how this COVID virus started. But if you thought this meeting on Friday was the end of this Cold War, forget it. China has since issued 4 demands if we want to get back on track with China. First, Australia must treat the dictatorship as a partner, not adversary, and seek common ground. We must not seek to control third parties, and we must build a positive public opinion, apparently a positive one for China. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is not impressed.
Australia doesn't respond to demands, we respond to our own national interest. I'll say this, we will cooperate with China where we can. I want to build good relations with all countries, but we will stand up for Australia's interests when we must.
Credit to Albanese, the right response. Joining me is Alexander Downer, Australia's longest serving Foreign Minister and, in my opinion, our best. Alexander Downer, thanks for your time. What is China actually demanding here? For instance, with this point 3, Australia must not try to control third parties. I'm thinking, what is this? We can't go to the Pacific Islands and say, hey, listen, be worried about China?
Yeah, so it's a combination, I think, of 2 things. The third demand, the first is to try to stop us from operating in the Pacific, and as the Chinese would see it, in contradiction to China's interests. But secondly, to try and wedge us away from the United States, from our very close alliance relationship with the United States. So it's really preposterous. They're dictating to us what our foreign policy should be in relation to other countries, not in relation to China. So, I mean, the whole thing is an absurdity, really. This is how communist regimes operate, though. They lay down demands and expect everybody to obey those demands, except in international relations. They can't arrest you and throw you in jail for disobeying.
But I don't quite get it. What is the mentality here? Do you think the Chinese Communist Party leadership really thinks this works? Or is this for show? I mean, can they be so clueless as to think, oh, well, we'll issue these demands and Australia will just fall over and obey?
Well, I think they have assumed that because Australia is quite heavily dependent on the China market for its exports, and Chinese investment in Australia is important, that economic interests will prevail, and that ultimately their demands will be met by Australia, harsh as they may sound, because, Australia's desperate for the money. And I suppose that goes to a sort of the core of Marxist philosophy or ideology. Their view is that the substructure of society is the economy. Everything is determined by economics. Whereas I think in truth that absolutely isn't true. For people, there are values that extend way beyond economics. All sorts of people think that, left-wing and right-wing people. So they're going to be sorely disappointed in trying to bully Australia like this. There'll be a unanimous view in Australia that we shouldn't be pushed around by China in this sort of way.
Alexander Downer, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been forced by his colleagues to quit as leader, at least once his Conservative Party has chosen a replacement, which could take a few months. How did he stuff up so badly after winning such a big victory less than 3 years ago?
Well, there are 2 answers to that. One of them is he's a bit ill-disciplined as a human being. So there were the lockdowns, which, I mean, I think to be fair to him, he was bullied into. He wasn't instinctively much in favour of the lockdowns. Then there were breaches of the lockdown rules in his own office, including by him on a couple of occasions. So That, on top of some other minor scandals, haven't done him any good. But secondly, and I think in a sense more seriously, though those moral issues are serious, but more seriously than that, he wasn't seen to be managing the economy at a time when economics is front and centre. He was always inclined to be popular, and so when interest groups demand extra spending, he would always give in and grant extra spending. He started to increase taxes, increasing the company tax rate from 19 to 25%, increasing what's called national insurance. That's a bit like the Medicare levy. That is additional spending
to undertake. And the fact is that within the Conservative Party, you can imagine there's real resistance to this tax and spend model. And at a time of inflation, why would you be imposing extra taxes, pushing up prices, of course, and extra spending is going to inflate the economy still more. So he was seen to be economically illiterate. And I do think in a time when he was struggling with these scandals, there wasn't much ballast to offset the scandals, really. There wasn't the policy ballast.
I know. And the true believers were ticked off by his global warming activism as well. But I think it's all funny. All these people who now want to replace him, like the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak and the former Health Minister Sajid Javid, they were for these tax rises before. Now that they want to prove that they're good Conservatives who can take over the party, they're against. So at least that gives us a little fun. But goodness knows whether they're going to find a true Conservative leader. Alexander Downer, thank you so much indeed for your time.